All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down a really fascinating prediction about how AI is actually changing the world. And what's so interesting is that this was just a theory about 5 months ago, but now, well, now we're seeing it become reality right in front of us.
So it all started with this one core idea.
The big fear isn't that robots are just going to suddenly wipe out every job tomorrow. It's something way more subtle than that, and honestly, probably more powerful. The prediction was that AI's first big move wouldn't be at the bottom or the top, but it would squeeze the very middle of the corporate world.
So let's rewind 5 months. The theory went something like this. AI's first casualties, they aren't going to be frontline workers. They aren't going to be the C-suite executives. No, the first to feel the pressure would be those stable, comfortable, and seemingly safe white-collar jobs that really make up the backbone of most big companies.
And who are we talking about here exactly? Well, think about the people whose jobs are to coordinate projects, to analyze all that data, to manage teams, write up the reports, and provide that crucial internal support. These are skilled, well-paid professionals. But their roles, while important, aren't so unique that they're totally irreplaceable. And that was the predicted bullseye.
Okay, and this is where things start to get really interesting. We're now moving from just theory and predictions to actual hard evidence. This isn't a forecast anymore. We're seeing a pattern emerge in the headlines from some of the biggest companies on the planet.
I mean, look at Amazon. They are the perfect example. They've been cutting corporate white-collar jobs, not the folks in the warehouses. And here is the absolute key. They are not doing this because they're losing money. They are doing this to become more efficient. And that single distinction changes absolutely everything.
And that brings us to the engine driving this whole trend. It's a metric called output per employee. See, AI tools have completely changed the game. It's not about what a single person can do anymore. It's about what leadership now expects a single person to produce. And once that expectation shifts, roles that were once mission-critical can suddenly look, well, optional.
And this whole process tends to roll out in 3 phases. It's pretty logical. First, AI tools come in and assist employees, just helping out with daily tasks. Then, pretty soon, those same tools start to accelerate entire workflows, making everything dramatically faster. And you know what comes next? Once management does the math on that found new speed, the final phase, replace, kicks in. And that doesn't always mean a robot sits down at a desk. It usually means one person can now do the work that it used to take 3 people to do.
And please, don't think this is just a Silicon Valley thing. It's not. Just look at UPS, right? A 100-year-old logistics company. They're doing the exact same thing, cutting management layers, pushing for tighter systems. This pressure to get more output from fewer people, it's happening everywhere.
We're even seeing it in a heavy industry. A manufacturing giant like Dow has announced that they're reducing their workforce, and they're not being shy about why. They're citing AI-driven efficiency. They just need fewer people to oversee and coordinate the work. It's the same pattern, just a different industry.
And of course, back in the tech world, the language they use might be a little different, but the outcome is exactly the same. You'll hear companies from Meta to Microsoft talk about improving efficiency or flattening layers, or, my personal favorite, focusing on high-impact talent. It's all just corporate jargon for the same thing. The middle is getting squeezed out.
And the data, well, it backs all of this up. This research from McKinsey is incredible. It shows that the explosive growth in demand isn't for those genius-level engineers who can build the AI. Nope. Look at that second bar. The real demand is for regular employees, your analysts, your marketers, your ops managers, who can use AI inside their normal jobs to just get more done.
So, if that's the cause, this massive, relentless corporate push for efficiency, then what's the effect? This is where the story pivots, because now we have to follow the people who have been pushed out and see what happens to them next.
Let's just pause and think about this for a second. Put yourself in their shoes. You're a talented project manager, maybe an analyst. Your role just got restructured. It's gone. You've got skills, you've got experience, but that corporate ladder you were climbing just vanished from under you. What is your next move?
Well, they don't all just go back and get another degree or start at the bottom of a different company. A lot of them are looking for a way to make money, and fast. They're hunting for opportunities that have a low barrier to entry, something where they can control their own destiny, and crucially, where there's already demand for the service. And this leads directly to what you might call the blue-collar flood. The efficiency gains happening in the white-collar world create this wave of smart, driven new entrepreneurs, and that wave flows right into service-based industries. And that's how one industry's efficiency becomes another industry's saturation.
Now, to be fair, this pattern isn't brand new. We've seen shocks to the system cause this before. Remember after the 2008 crash? The number of new cleaning businesses just exploded. Or during the pandemic when layoffs hit, junk removal companies were popping up everywhere. Big economic shocks tend to push people into these kinds of accessible businesses.
But, and this is the part you really have to understand, this time is different. COVID was a temporary shock. It was an event. This AI shift is structural. It is a permanent change in the basic math of how businesses operate, and that pressure isn't going away. In fact, it's only going to grow. This isn't a storm passing through. This is the climate changing for good.
So what does all this saturation actually feel like for a small business owner on the ground? Well, all of a sudden, you've got way more operators fighting for the same customers. That, of course, drives your advertising costs through the roof. The new guys, they have to undercut on price just to get a foot in the door. And the result for everybody? Thinner and thinner profit margins. So that brings us to the final, and I think the most important part of this whole story. If you are already running a business in one of these service industries, you are not powerless. Far from it. In fact, you have a critical head start. You have this window of opportunity right now to build a defensive moat around your business before that wave really hits the shore.
And how long is that window? The estimate is somewhere around 18 to 24 months. Why? Because that's the time when most of your future competitors are still at their corporate jobs, trying to hang on. This quiet period, right now, is your golden opportunity to lock in your advantage.
So what do? Here's the playbook. First, you go all in on building review dominance so that newcomers can never catch up. Second, you lock in commercial accounts to get that stable, recurring revenue. Third, you own your local search results now before the ad costs go insane. You also have to systematize your operations to protect your profit margins when prices start to fall. And finally, you build a brand that becomes the default choice in your town so that price becomes a secondary thought for your customers.
The lesson from history on this is so clear. Every single time one of these saturation cycles happens, the biggest rewards always go to the businesses that were already there, that were already professional, and that were prepared before the flood of new competition showed up.
And let this be the big takeaway. You have to be proactive. If you wait until the market feels crowded, until you start seeing 10 new companies pop up on Google, I'm sorry, but you're already too late. The time to build your defenses is right now, during this quiet period.
So we end on this thought. This AI efficiency wave, it's not some hypothetical thing we read about in an article anymore. It is actively forming as we speak, company by company, layoff by layoff. The wave is building. And the only question left to ask is, are you ready for what comes next?